Hey everybody, Riley here with RSKI, and today I'm going to talk all about getting water out of your jet ski hull. What kind of bilge pumps do you use? Do you use the stock Siphon? Where do I install the bilge pumps? How do I install the bilge pumps? How do I wire the bilge pumps? What switches should I use? What's good for salt water? What's not good? All of those things are going to be covered in this video, and everything we know about jet ski bilge pumps, you're going to learn today. Now this is the bilge pump bracket out of my Superjet, my surf ski. Before you criticize it, hang on a sec, hang on. So the first thing I actually want to talk about is not an electric bilge pump. It's the stock OEM Yamaha Siphon. It's this right here, and it comes with this bracket. It's installed on the Superjets from the factory, and it has holes in the bottom, so it sucks water through these holes and out of your ski all the time. No moving parts, assuming your engine is running. Should we use that? Absolutely, I believe you should use that. The only challenge in using this is if you run trim. Sometimes that trim tube takes up what used to be the siphon tube to get back to the pump in the back of the ski. There's one main thing that you have to think about when running the stock Siphon, and that is that you also run the stock hose and especially the stock elbow. So in the past, I made my own elbow because I didn't have one of these. And when I look at this and I look at this, the only difference looks like it's a different color, different type of tubing, but it should work fine. It's not true because this OEM fitting has a hole in it, a tiny little pinhole. What that does is it breaks the siphon when your engine is off. So if you don't have this and you shut your engine off, your stock siphon will actually pull water from the ocean, the lake, or the river into your hole, because you need this pinhole to break that siphon. When you start the engine, everything works properly. When you shut it off, everything works properly. If you have this stock elbow. Big deal, make sure you use the stock elbow. Now I want to show you how to mount the stock siphon properly. Let's take a look inside the hole. So you can see it's mounted underneath the midshaft. There is a place to put a screw in, and it holds the siphon right against the bottom of the hole. This tube runs up the side, and I always make sure to zip tie it up to the top because it won't work properly down on the floor. It has to be up above the water line. This ski was previously set up as my surf ski here in Oregon, and now I'm sending it to my mom in Nebraska. So I used to have dual bilges, so I have two outlets, but my mom's not too crazy, so I think I'm just going to set up one bilge pump and make sure the stock siphon is installed properly. Should be good to go. There are two types of bilge pumps that I've used, and they're both made by Rule. This is a 500 gallon per hour electric bilge pump, and this is the old style that I ran for many years. It's got a blue removable basket on the bottom that keeps debris from going in, and you can either epoxy this down to your hole somewhere, or you can mount it on a bracket like you saw on that other one. This specific pump has already been outfitted with the watertight connectors that I like to use. I can leave a link down below so you can get these connectors along with the crimp tool to crimp them properly. I've never had any problems with water intrusion or salt water or corrosion, anything like that in these connectors. They're amazing. Within the last year or two, Rule stopped making that older bilge pump and they replaced it with this one. This one is a very similar size. It has a different basket design. It serves the same purpose. It's still 500 gallons per hour, so the same rating. This is the normal wiring as the old, it's the same as the old one, and it's got a blue removable basket. Just different shapes, otherwise it's the same. One main difference you'll see is it has this anti-reverse flow, like a duckbill. It'll only flow one direction, like a one-way valve. Other than that, they're basically the same. Once you have this secured up here, you'll connect the other end of the hose to this tube on the right side of the midshaft. So your cooling lines, stock siphon line. As we go to the back of the ski, you can see where that line comes out, plugs into the pump here. And on the inside of the pump, you can see that boss with a hole in it. As the water flows over that, it creates the negative pressure. So that's how the siphon works. Now let's talk about where should the bilge outlets be. This is very important, and the best location I've found is always as high as you can get them and as far back on the ski as you can get them. You just have to be careful when you drill the hole that you have plenty of room in there to get the bilge pump fitting installed and the nut on the back. You got to make sure that you have enough clearance to install this nut on the back so you don't hit this wall or too far to the top where it starts to be curved. Basically, as close as you can get it is that top corner. And I did that on both sides on this jet ski. Now there's two main ways to install the actual pumps. You can use a bracket like this, and the blue baskets are actually riveted into the bracket. The other way to do it is to use epoxy. My favorite epoxy is called a Lord 310 A/B. It's perfect for fiberglass and plastic bonding, and it has great resistance to corrosion or any salt water. I've had no problems with this. Epoxy is amazing. It comes with these mixing tips that mixes the epoxy as it travels to the end. By the time it gets to the end of the tip, it is perfectly mixed and you're good to go. This is 24-hour epoxy, so you have to be patient and you have to let it completely dry before you use it, but it's very, very strong. Once you pick the location exactly where your bilge pump is going to be, I usually mark it with a white marker or something, and then I make sure that I sand the bottom of the bilge pump bracket and I sand the hole where the bilge pump is going to be. And I just use like a 60 grit, this is a 36 grit sandpaper to make sure that I get a nice rough surface here and in the hole. And that'll make sure that that epoxy gets like a full bond. I just make sure to pick a location that is safe and will not hit the midshaft with the wiring or the bilge tube outlet. So be creative here in how you get this thing to fit and make sure it's the best fit before you epoxy it down. On this one, I actually ran the tube underneath the midshaft because the tube will have more room to come up and around, and I don't have to worry about the wiring getting into the midshaft at all. This might be a little bit hard to do, but I want to show you how the bracket that was in there with all this stuff on it, how it looks and how it fits in there. So I think I'm just going to show you Stuart's ski because it's set up really well. So this is how you do the bracket install. And the bracket just uses this bolt of the midshaft and the bottom bolt of the midshaft. And this one is not holding the bracket in. So just the right one and the bottom one. It's also a good idea to put a zip tie or two around your stock siphon like this, because we've had really hard hits that jarred this loose and then it's just flying around the engine compartment. So it's good to zip tie those in. And with these old rule bilge pumps, we usually zip tie around this too to keep this tab from pushing in. It's not installed on Stu's right now, but we've also had these come loose from hard impacts. So we zip tie this tab so it can't come loose until you cut the zip tie. And that is how you install on a bracket. If you want to run electric bilge pumps, most likely you're going to get this one. It's the new Rule 500. It's going to come like this, and the wires are just bare. You got to do something with this or it's going to get corrosion, and actually salt water will wick up the wire and go all the way into the pump, and it will also go the other direction into your e-box if you let it. So you got to have a watertight seal if you're in the salt water. So I found that these Weather Pack, I think is the name, terminals, I'll put a link in the description for you to buy. I found these through OCD Solutions. He uses them on all of the bilge pump kits, and he puts them on the bilge pumps for you if you can order from him. It's already done. If not, I use this crimp tool. It's a ratcheting tool kit. I'll put a link in the description, but it comes with all the tools to crimp all different types of connectors. and it has a specific tool to crimp these perfectly. When you order a bilge pump from OCD Solutions, it comes with the wire already cut and these crimped on it. So that's probably like 10 or 12 inches long. So I'm gonna do the same thing to this one, and I'm just gonna copy what OCD did because it works perfect. As you prepare these connectors, make sure you have a male and a male, the two small ones, and a female, the two larger ones. So the male connector is going to go on the brown wire, and the female connector is going to go on the black wire. But make sure to put these clear rubber pieces on first before you crimp anything. So you can do that. So if you look on the instructions here, it tells you which die set to use. And this one I'm going to use 18922, which is including weather pack terminals. So that's this one, and I'm going to switch it out. Okay, I've got the 18922 dies installed. Now I'm ready to crimp. Once you squeeze it all the way, it'll do one final click, and then it'll release. It looks like I got the first one right, probably for the very first time. It'll crimp the small part on the metal and the bigger part on the insulation. I seriously cannot believe I just did that right the very first time. That never happens to me. So then you pull the rubber parts over the ends, and the bilge pump is ready to go, wired up. Just because I have an old one, I'm gonna steal the wire loom off of the OCD pump that I had, an old one, and I'm gonna reuse it. All right, bilge pump is completely ready to go. You can never have enough hose clamps. I guess the only other thing I need to do is plug this hole. So I think I'm gonna go design a cap and 3D print it, and then I'll cap that. Let's go do that. This is about the size we'll need the cap to be on the inside, 780 thou. Let's go do it. I'm going to design a plug in SolidWorks and 3D print it on the 3D printer. Here's a closer look at the rubber cap, just 3D printed. It took 25 minutes on the printer. Let's see if it fits. Perfect. All right, I got the hose clamp on. That thing is done. So now we've got the bilge pump installed, this extra bilge outlet plugged with that 3D printed plug. I've got the OCD Solutions bilge switch installed, and I've got the bilge pump wiring prepped and ready to plug in. So the only thing missing to fill in this gap is the electronics box, and there's one sitting over here, so let's go check it out and you can see the final pieces. So I'm using Stu's e-box as an example here because his ski is torn apart, and when you install the OCD bilge kit, everything goes through this grommet here, and it's an OEM style, so you know everything is going to stay watertight. The best thing about this kit is that the power and the ground are done inside the e-box, so you don't have to connect anything else to your battery, just one ground and one power like normal. Alright guys, now you know how we set up our bilge pump systems at RSKI. If you have any better ideas, let us know in the comments. We'd be stoked to hear it. We'll see you in the next one. Later.